You're lying flat on a rooftop with a rifle pressed into your shoulder, and the man in your crosshairs has no idea he's about to die. He's sitting on a hotel balcony 800 yards out, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up over a city that isn't his. Your finger is on the trigger. Your breathing is slow. The wind is dead. You've made this shot 100 times in worse conditions, and for some reason, you don't pull. You're a contract killer. 14 jobs in 9 years. You've never missed. You've never hesitated. You've never had a target survive long enough to know your face. You don't drink the day before. You don't sleep with women you don't pay. You don't keep photos of anyone. You're a clean machine, and the people who hire you pay clean prices for the work. And that arrangement has kept you alive through 3 different administrations of an organization that buries men who become inconvenient. You've been convenient for 9 years. You should have stayed convenient for 9 more. The target is a man named Vargas, mid-50s, former accountant for the organization. 2 weeks ago, he started talking to a federal task force about where the bodies are buried, both the literal ones and the financial ones. You don't get told why. You never get told why. The envelope shows up at a dead drop with a name, a photo, an address, and a number. You confirm the number. You do the work. The envelope disappears. That's how it's always been. Except this morning, looking through the scope, you see him do something you weren't supposed to see. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, walks out onto the balcony in pajamas, climbs into his lap, and shows him a drawing. He smiles at her the way men smile when they've already made peace with what's coming. He kisses the top of her head. He holds the drawing up to the light like it's something holy. And your finger, which has put 14 men in the ground without a second of hesitation, stops working. You should still pull. You know you should still pull. You've shot men in front of their wives before. You've shot a man holding a phone with his mother on the other end. The job doesn't care who's watching. The job cares about the contract. And right now the contract is sitting on a balcony with a child in his lap. And you are lying on a rooftop with a rifle that suddenly weighs more than it ever has in your life. You lower the rifle. You break down the weapon with hands that move automatically, the way they've always moved. Except now there's a tremor in them you've never felt before. You wipe the brass. You bag the casings you never even fired. You take the stairs down from the roof at the same calm pace you came up. And the doorman at the service entrance nods at you the way he nods at every contractor. And you nod back the way you always do. From the outside, nothing has changed. From the inside, you've just signed your own contract, and you know it before you reach the street. You spend the next 6 hours doing exactly what you were trained to do when something goes wrong. You move money. You burn one phone and activate another. You sit in a coffee shop 2 miles from the target and watch the police scanner for anything that says a man on a balcony got hit by anyone other than you. Nothing comes through. By noon, Vargas is still alive. By 2 o'clock, the federal task force has him in a black SUV, headed somewhere you'll never find out about. By 3, the organization knows. They don't call. They never call when it's bad. What happens instead is your dead drop goes silent. The little routine you've had for 9 years, confirmation pings, payment markers, the next envelope, all of it stops at the exact same minute, like a power cut. You sit in a parking garage, staring at a phone that should be vibrating and isn't. And you understand fully, for the first time, that the man you didn't kill is going to cost you every person you ever cared about. And you don't even know yet who that's going to be. The only person you ever cared about is Daniel. He's your handler, has been since your second job. You've never met him in person. You don't know his real name. You know his voice on a burner, the way he laughs at his own jokes before the punchline, the way he asks about your sleep like a man asking about a soldier in his unit. He's the closest thing you have to a friend in a profession that doesn't allow them. And you've trusted him with your life every month for 9 years. Because he's never given you a reason not to. Your phone buzzes at 4 o'clock. New number. His voice. Calm, the way he always is, except there's a half-second pause before he speaks that wasn't there yesterday. He says he heard. He says he's been asking around. He says he doesn't believe it was you, and he needs you to tell him it wasn't. Because if it wasn't you, he can fix this. And if it was you, there's nothing left to fix. You sit in the parking garage and you do something you've never done before. You tell him the truth. You tell him about the girl on the balcony, the drawing, the way Vargas kissed the top of her head. You tell him the rifle weighed too much. You tell him you don't know what's wrong with you. He's quiet a long time. Then he says, very gently, that you should go to a safe house he knows about, that he's going to make some calls, that he's going to try. He gives you an address. He tells you not to move from there until he comes for you personally. He says it like a man asking a friend for a favor. You drive to the address. It's a fishing cabin 2 hours outside the city. The kind of place people inherit and forget about. You sweep it for cameras. You sweep it for wires. You move the truck a quarter-mile down the road and walk back through the woods. You sit on the porch with a pistol on your lap and you watch the tree line. And somewhere in the back of your head, you already know what's coming. Because you would know what was coming if you were on the other side of this call. You trained the people they're going to send. You wrote half the rules they'll use to find you. Daniel doesn't come that night. He doesn't come the next morning. You stop sleeping. You stop eating anything you didn't bring with you. You watch the road, and you watch the trees, and you run the math the way you've run it for 14 other targets in 14 other cabins. The math always ends the same way, no matter which side of the rifle you're on. The math says, the cabin is a coffin. The math says, Daniel sent you here so the team would have time to set up. The math says, the only friend you ever had spent the last 24 hours doing the exact thing you trained him to do. You give it one more day. Not because you trust him, because you want to be wrong. The same way Daniel wanted to be wrong about you when he picked up the phone yesterday. You want there to be a version of the world where the man who laughed at his own jokes for 9 years didn't pick up the phone last night and tell someone where you were. You give it 24 hours. He uses every one of them. He arrives just after dark. Alone, on foot, the way you would have arrived. He doesn't bring a team because a team makes noise, and he knows you can hear noise from a mile out. He comes up the path with his hands open at his sides, like a man surrendering. And you watch him through the scope from the tree line 100 yards behind the cabin. And you see the pistol tucked into the back of his belt. And you understand the whole conversation that's about to happen before he ever opens his mouth. He stops at the porch. He calls your name into the empty cabin. He calls it twice. When you don't answer, he doesn't seem surprised. He sits down on the porch steps with his back to the door, looks out at the trees, and waits. He knows you're watching. He's giving you the chance to take the shot first. That's the kindest thing he can do for you right now, and you understand that. And the rifle in your hands suddenly weighs the same impossible weight it weighed on the rooftop yesterday morning. You don't pull. Again. You set the rifle down in the leaves, and you walk out of the trees with your hands open, the same way his were, and his head turns slowly when he hears you. And you see something pass across his face that you've never seen there in 9 years of phone calls. It's grief. The same grief you saw when you lowered the rifle on the rooftop. The grief of a man who has already made peace with what's coming and is just waiting for the moment to find him. You sit down on the steps next to him. Neither of you speaks for a long time. The woods around you are completely silent. The kind of silent that only happens when something is watching everything else and the small animals know to be still. He finally tells you, without looking at you, that he tried, that he made every call he could make, that there was no version of this where they let it go, because the man you didn't kill is sitting in federal custody right now naming names, and every name he gives them is a name that lived because you didn't pull the trigger. He says it the way a doctor delivers a diagnosis. No anger, no accusation, just the math. You ask him why he came himself. He's quiet a long time. Then he says it's because the people who would have come otherwise wouldn't have given you the chance to do anything but die in the dark. He says he owed you that much. He says he's owed you a lot of things for 9 years and never figured out how to pay any of them. And this is the only currency he has left. You sit with that for a minute. You think about the girl on the balcony. You think about the drawing she held up to the light. You think about 14 men who never got the conversation you're getting right now. And you understand that the thing that stopped you yesterday wasn't weakness. It was 9 years of running a tab you never knew was open. And yesterday morning, on that rooftop, the tab finally came due. And somewhere inside you, a man you didn't know was still alive looked at a little girl and refused to make her into what you've made 14 other children into without ever bothering to count. You ask Daniel if there's any way out. He looks at you, really looks at you for the first time since he sat down. He says no. He says he's sorry. He says it the way a friend says it. You ask him to do it himself, not because you want him to, because you don't want it to be one of the kids you trained, the ones who will learn the wrong lesson from how you died, the ones who will be even cleaner machines than you were, because they'll know what happens to a machine that develops a conscience. He nods. He understands. He spent 9 years understanding you in ways you never gave anyone else the chance to. He stands up, you stand up. You walk together to the edge of the porch, where the light from the cabin doesn't reach, and you turn your back to him, because that's the kind thing to do. The thing that lets him pretend for one more second that this is anything other than what it is. You think about the girl. You think about the drawing. You think, for the first time in 9 years, that maybe sparing one life was worth 14. Even if the 14th was your own. Daniel doesn't pull either. You stand there in the dark with your back to him for what feels like a very long time. And finally, you hear him sit back down on the steps and let out a breath like a man who has been holding it for a decade. He says, quietly, that he can't. He says he doesn't know what they're going to do to him for failing, but he knows what they would have done to you if he hadn't. And somewhere in there is a math he can live with. You both sit on the porch in the dark and listen to the wood. Eventually, he tells you about a place. North, cold, a name and an address, and a man who owes him favors. He says it's not a life. He says it might be 3 months before they find you, 6 if you're careful, a year if you're lucky and you forget how to be the thing you were. He says it's the only thing he has left to give you. You take it. You leave that night. You drive north until the sun comes up, and then you keep driving. You think about Vargas in federal custody, telling the truth about a world that ran on lies for 30 years. You think about Daniel sitting on a porch in the dark, deciding which lie he was going to tell when they asked him what happened. You think about the girl on the balcony, who will get to grow up because of a shot that didn't happen, and who will never know your name, which is exactly how it should be. You're not a hitman anymore. You're not really a person yet either. You're something in between. Something that has to learn how to be quiet in a different way than you were quiet before. You sleep in motels under names that change every week. You eat in diners where the waitresses don't ask questions. You watch the door. You watch the road. Every time a car slows down outside, you check the angles. It isn't a life. Daniel was right about that. But you're alive in a way you weren't alive for 9 years. The way a man is alive when he has done one thing he can live with, stacked against everything else he can't. The math doesn't balance. The math will never balance. But for the first time you can remember, you're carrying it instead of pretending it isn't there. Somewhere in a city you'll never go back to, a girl is taping her drawing to a refrigerator. You'll never see it. You don't need to. If this story stayed with you, hit the join button below to support the channel.